A smart person doesn't seek the truth. He seeks the angle from which it can be controlled. Welcome back, warriors, to the channel. Most people think power comes from control, but Machiavelli knew that true power begins in the mind. Because when you are impossible to control, you control everything. Look around. The world is run not by the strongest nor the kindest. It is run by the thinkers, those who see 10 steps ahead while everyone else is still reacting. In any era, strength fades, charm dies, but strategy endures. Those who rise are the ones who think differently. They do not follow emotions. They do not get lost in the noise. They observe, they calculate, they adapt. And when the rest of the world is panicking, they strike. Machiavelli once said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does in the end." He meant that intelligence is not about knowing more. It is about acting fast, seeing clearly, and thinking sharply. Because intelligence is the one form of power that cannot be stolen, copied, or destroyed. You either build it, or you remain controlled by those who have. But here is the truth most people will never confront. Your brain has been programmed to stay weak, to chase comfort, to avoid pressure, and to drown in distraction. You scroll nonsense, argue about nothing, and wonder why you feel powerless. It is not because the world is against you. It is because your mind has stopped evolving. What if you could rewire it to think 10 times faster? To read people like open books, to predict outcomes before they happen, to become so mentally sharp that manipulation cannot touch you? This is what I call cognitive edge conditioning, a system that forges your brain into a weapon of strategy, discipline, and control. This is not motivation. This is mental evolution. This is how you become unbreakable under pressure and unreadable in chaos. Because once your mind is stronger than your emotions, you stop reacting and start ruling. This is how you rise above manipulation, fear, and weakness. By mastering the one battlefield that matters most, your mind. Before we go further, if you find value in this kind of deep dive on strategy and mental mastery, please subscribe to the channel and join the rising number of thinkers. I want you to write this statement in the comments. My mind is my power. Intelligence is the real power. True dominance does not come from control. It comes from understanding. When your mind is sharper than your environment, you no longer fight for power. You attract it. Intelligent people do not need to prove themselves through noise or conflict. They let logic and precision speak for them. Intelligence is not mere knowledge, it is foresight. It is the ability to see past the emotions, past the illusions, and into the very fabric of reality. When you understand how people think, how they react, and what drives them, you can navigate any situation like a chess master among pawns. Most people spend their energy trying to appear powerful, while the intelligent quietly study, adapt, and predict. They know that true power is silent. It does not shout. It observes. It calculates. It moves with intention, because when you can predict, you can control outcomes without ever displaying control. Machiavelli once said, "There is no other way to guard yourself against flattery than to make men understand that telling you the truth will not offend you." He was not just talking about honesty. He was describing intellectual superiority, the kind of mind that is impervious to emotional manipulation. A strong mind does not crave approval. It seeks accuracy, and that is what makes it dangerous. The intelligent mind disengages from the ego. It learns from insults, dissects failures, and turns pressure into focus. Where others crumble under criticism, the intelligent sharpen their edges. Because every challenge, every mistake, every betrayal becomes information, a data point for mastery. This is why intelligence is feared. A manipulator can fool emotion, but never reason. You can deceive one who feels too much, but never one who thinks deeply. When you train your cognition, you become untouchable. Not because you know everything, but because nothing surprises you anymore. Every move you make is calculated, every silence is meaningful, every reaction from others becomes predictable. This is what separates the thinkers from the followers. The intelligent move like shadows, quietly but decisively. They understand timing, perception, and human psychology. They can guide a conversation without saying much, redirect conflict without confrontation, and acquire influence without force. Intelligence creates leverage, and leverage creates freedom. When your mind understands how systems, people, and incentives work, you stop playing the game. You design it. That is when life starts to bend to your favor, not because you are manipulating others, but because you are mastering yourself. Intelligence is self-control. It is awareness. It is the discipline to pause when others panic, to analyze when others react, and to act only when the timing is perfect. The intelligent mind sees opportunity in tension and calm in chaos. It never lets emotion steer, because emotion blinds. Logic sees. That is why the intelligent can remain calm while everyone else burns. They have trained themselves to detach from the immediate feeling and connect to the long-term consequence. The fool speaks to be heard. The intelligent speak to guide. The fool reacts to every threat. The intelligent design the threat. And when the intelligent move, it is not noise, it is strategy. Remember this: every word you speak, every choice you make, every emotion you permit either strengthens or weakens your cognitive edge. Guard your mind like a kingdom because it is one. Sharpen it every day, challenge it, feed it pressure. Observe the world not for comfort, but for understanding. Because once you learn to think like no one else, you will never be treated like anyone else. Machiavelli said it best: a man who wants to practice goodness in everything is sure to go to ruin among so many who are not good. In other words, intelligence is not about being good. It is about being wise enough to survive. And the ones who survive the longest are the ones who think the deepest. Now, I want you to write this statement in the comments. My intelligence is my weapon. Cognitive edge conditioning. This is the method that creates the cognitive advantage. A 6-phase mental system designed to sharpen your mind under pressure, predict outcomes before they happen, and dominate any situation. By deliberately training your brain, you become faster, clearer, and impossible to manipulate, forging intelligence into an unstoppable force. Let's break it down. Step 1. Create cognitive tension. Comfort is the silent killer of brilliance. If you want a sharper mind, you must create pressure in your life until thinking becomes a reflex, not a retreat. Cognitive tension is not pain for the sake of pain. It is the deliberate resistance that forces the brain to build new circuits, faster associations, and ruthless clarity. Start by rewiring your everyday environment to constantly demand more from you than you expect. Choose tasks that strain your attention. Put yourself in controlled disagreement with smarter people. Read ideas that make you uncomfortable and schedule short, intense periods where distraction is forbidden and consequences matter. This is not masochism, it is training. The mind behaves like a muscle. Strain it with complexity and it grows. Leave it soft and it atrophies. You must chase problems that have no easy answers and embrace the temporary frustration that comes with growth. Seek out conversations that expose blind spots, not compliments that soothe them. Place small stakes where the outcome relies on your judgment. Then study what the results say about your thinking. Do not let your brain live in the predictable. Replace the trivial with the complex. Change your route to work. Study a language with challenging grammar. Debate a principle you do not fully agree with. or tackle puzzles that require pattern recognition under time pressure. Every novelty creates cognitive micro-traumas that, when healed, leave stronger neural pathways. But tension without reflection is noise. You must convert pressure into insight, capturing what you learned immediately. Journal the surprises, note the emotional triggers, map out recurring errors, and force yourself to extract one tactical adjustment after every test. The goal is not stress for spectacle. It is repetitive micro-tests that demand adaptation. Create rituals that simulate crisis so your brain becomes free to decide under uncertainty. Short cold exposure to sharpen breath and focus. Meditation to notice the first twitch of panic and choose a response. Timed problem-solving sessions to cut down rumination. And deliberate social challenges to practice unreadability. These are your training drills. Make them non-negotiable. As you increase cognitive tension, monitor your limits. Growth requires discomfort, not collapse. If your system spirals into chronic overload, reduce volume, then increase precision. Fewer, sharper challenges beat rampant chaos. Over time, the ability to hold tension becomes a resource. Your threshold rises, and mental clarity under pressure becomes habitual. When people panic, you think. When they hesitate, you act. That is leverage. In short, create a life that demands more from you than you expect. Convert every stressor into a lesson and refuse the comfort that dulls perception. You are not training to survive mediocrity. You are training to outthink it. Machiavelli once said, "He who desires constant success must change his conduct with the times." Write this statement in the comments. I embrace resistance. Step 2. Master predictive thinking. Prediction is the currency of power. Those who anticipate the moves of people, events, and circumstances always operate above the fray, untouched by chaos. Mastering predictive thinking requires more than observation. It requires the systematic development of foresight that turns possibility into probability. Start by studying patterns in human behavior, notice recurring reactions, recognize habitual choices, and track the emotional triggers that push decisions in predictable directions. Record these patterns without judgment, then formulate scenarios for how they might play out under different pressures. The intelligent mind does not wait for events to happen. It presenses, prepares, and positions itself in advance. Audit your own decision-making processes. What choices repeat unconsciously? What assumptions mislead? And what impulses betray logic? Predictive thinking is as much inward as it is outward. You must simulate outcomes internally before confronting them externally. Imagine conversations before they happen, anticipate objections before they arise, and plan responses in advance. A brain trained this way begins to detect subtleties invisible to ordinary perception. Micro-expressions, tonal shifts, hesitations, all revealing hidden intent. Extend this practice beyond people. Systems, economies, social dynamics, and environmental changes can be anticipated through structured analysis. Look for signals where others see noise, a change in tone, a shift in routine, a delayed response. These are early indicators of larger patterns. Keep a consequence journal of past successes and failures to refine prediction models. Every mistake is not a defeat, but data. The more you track and analyze, the sharper your foresight becomes, and the less the action of others controls you. This is strategic foresight in its purest form, the ability to act not because circumstances demand it, but because you have already charted the path ahead. Predictive thinking also requires emotional discipline. The anticipation of outcomes must remain detached from the desire. You cannot predict effectively if fear or greed distorts perception. Neutral observation is a weapon. It allows you to maintain calm while everyone else reacts impulsively. Train your mind to ask the question, What happens next? For every interaction, decision, or event, then mentally rehearse multiple contingencies. When done consistently, the brain begins to automatically model scenarios, weigh probabilities, and prioritize actions without conscious strain. This is how intelligence becomes unassailable. Not through brute knowledge, but through foresight that leaves no room for surprise. By predicting the moves before they happen, you control the field without exerting force. You become the quiet architect of outcomes. Machiavelli once said, "Men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see, but few have the gift of penetration." Now, I want you to write this statement in the comments. I anticipate every move. Step 3. Cultivate mental agility. Mental agility is the ultimate weapon against stagnation and manipulation. A mind that bends without breaking dominates situations that rigid thinkers crumble beneath. To develop agility, you must train your thoughts to pivot instantly, to abandon comfort when it impedes opportunity, and to see multiple solutions where others see only dead ends. Start by exposing yourself to scenarios that require rapid assessment. Complex problems with incomplete information, debates where opponents challenge core assumptions, and tasks that require simultaneous attention to multiple variables. The agile mind does not seek certainty. It thrives in ambiguity, learning to turn without hesitation. Agility is not indecision. It is the ability to change strategy without losing coherence, to discard old patterns when they stop serving, and to improvise solutions under pressure. Practice reframing problems from different perspectives. For every obstacle, ask what alternative path exists that no one else sees. Develop the habit of asking unconventional questions. Why is this the assumed solution? What would happen if I reversed the standard approach? Train your brain to hold multiple possible strategies simultaneously, weighing their risks and potential outcomes so that when circumstances shift, your response is immediate, accurate, and effective. Mental agility also requires emotional plasticity. You must detach from frustration, annoyance, and attachment to a single plan, seeing them only as data points for adjustment. People who cling to one way of thinking are trapped. Those who move with circumstances, adapting instantly, become untouchable. Another aspect of agility is speed. The faster your mind can analyze, adapt, and decide, the fewer openings exist for manipulation. Timed problem-solving drills, rapid scenario rehearsals, and crisis simulations train the brain to respond with both velocity and precision. Observe how the world resists change and use that resistance to refine your flexibility. Anticipate shifts before they are apparent and prepare to adjust without delay. Learn to balance creativity and logic. The first generates new paths, the second ensures their viability. The agile mind is neither rigid nor chaotic. It is a disciplined dancer, flowing between options with calculated freedom. Every unexpected change, challenge, or threat becomes an opportunity to practice agility, sharpen instinct, and expand mental range. When your thinking becomes plastic, attempts by others to trap, deceive, or control you fail because you never occupy a fixed position. You are a constant variable, unpredictable yet precise, adaptive yet intentional. Mastering mental agility forges the brain into a dynamic weapon, able to navigate uncertainty, complexity, and conflict with ease. Machiavelli once said, "He who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy that is not so, will be the conqueror." I want you to write this statement in the comments. My mind bends, but never breaks. Step 4. Dominate through unpredictability. Predictability is a vulnerability. Those who follow patterns can be anticipated, controlled, and defeated. To dominate through unpredictability, you must train yourself to act without visible motive, to shift behavior in ways that disorient observers, and to cultivate a presence that resists anticipation. Start by deliberately varying routine. Vary your schedule, change your methods, and rotate your approaches so that no one can map your habits. Small inconsistencies create uncertainty around your character, forcing others to hesitate before acting, unsure of your next move. Extend this principle to communication. Speak selectively, disclose intentions sparingly, and allow ambiguity to create an advantage. The powerful mind understands that perception is reality. By projecting uncertainty and leaving gaps in understanding, you shape how others react without direct confrontation. Unpredictability is not chaos, it is controlled plasticity, the ability to pivot, deceive, or mislead while maintaining strategic purpose. Practice setting false trails in negotiations, experiments, and social interactions. Hint at one plan, execute another, and adjust in real time. Over time, observers cannot trust assumptions, and your actions become autonomous from external pressure. Integrate this with strategic visibility. Sometimes reveal predictable behavior to lull competitors, then shift unexpectedly to exploit the openings created. Timing is critical. Unpredictability works when executed with precision, not randomness. Your unpredictability must breed hesitation, confusion, and caution in others, which grants you the operational advantage. Socially, cultivate an aura of mystery. Disclose selective personal details, vary emotional responses, and modulate tone and energy so your internal state is unreadable. This creates psychological leverage because those who cannot anticipate are forced to react rather than initiate. Dominance through unpredictability also extends to decision-making. Shun the predictable choice. Evaluate multiple resolutions and act in a way that disrupts expectations without sacrificing consistency. The intelligent mind thrives in this space, turning surprise into a tactical tool and transforming the unknown into a controlled environment. When others plan based on expectation, you operate on initiative. When they hesitate, you act decisively. Over time, consistent unpredictability creates an invisible shield. Manipulation fails, deception weakens, and resistance diminishes because opponents can neither calculate nor anticipate effectively. To dominate, embrace plasticity in presence, resolution, and strategy, ensuring your moves cannot be copied or contained. Machiavelli once said, "A prudent ruler ought not to keep faith when by so doing it would be against his interest." Write this statement in the comments. I am strategically unpredictable. Step 5. Leverage emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the hidden engine of influence. While others rely on force, charm, or rhetoric, the truly powerful manipulate outcomes by controlling the currents beneath the surface. Leveraging emotional intelligence begins with acute self-awareness. Recognize your impulses before they manifest. Detect the first flare of frustration, fear, or desire, and convert them into strategic signals, not reactive forces. Observing others is equally critical. Subtle shifts in tone, posture, expression, and timing reveal intent, weakness, and unspoken opportunities. By reading emotions as clearly as data points, you gain a predictive edge, understanding motives that remain invisible to ordinary perception. Emotional mastery is not suppressing feelings, but calibrating them. Projecting confidence when you are unsure, warmth when it is strategic, detachment when observing, and intensity when influence is required. The intelligent mind uses mood to shape decisions. It knows that people rarely act solely on logic and that perception often outweighs reality. Train yourself to influence without obvious effort. A nod, a timely pause, a subtle change of face can redirect choices, control tension, or disarm resistance. Simultaneously, fortify your own emotional resilience. The stronger your internal regulation, the less the provocation of others dictates your behavior. Practice deliberate exposure to discomfort, difficult conversations, confrontational debates, and high-tension social environments to refine your ability to respond rather than react. The more attuned you become, the more invisible your manipulation becomes, because influence is strongest when it feels organic to those it affects. Emotional intelligence also allows for the flexible balancing of patience and action. Knowing when to push, when to retreat, when to listen, and when to speak creates layers of advantage invisible to competitors. By mastering this dynamic, you convert subtle human behavior into leverage, orchestrating interactions without overt dominance. The intelligent mind integrates emotional observation with strategic forecasting. Every emotional cue is interpreted for its potential influence on outcomes, and every response is engineered to maximize advantage. Emotional intelligence shields the mind from deception, enhances leadership presence, and turns interpersonal friction into opportunities for control. By combining insight into others with control over self, you operate in a space where manipulation cannot reach, and influence flows naturally from perception and execution. Those who master this domain dictate environments without force, navigate conflict without friction, and ascend to command without revealing the extent of their control. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Fear here is not cruelty, but the quiet acknowledgement of intelligence and unpredictability. Now, I want you to write this statement in the comments. I control my emotions. Becoming the apex thinker. To become the apex thinker is not a title. It is a state of mental superiority, where the mind governs every choice, every perception, and every outcome. It is the stage where reaction ceases and calculation dominates. Chaos becomes an ally, complexity a playground, and pressure a tool for refinement. The apex thinker observes without attachment, predicts without hesitation, and moves without revealing intent. Ordinary people react to events. They scramble, panic, and negotiate with weakness. The apex thinker designs circumstances, bending probability to their favor and shaping environments so outcomes align with strategy, not chance. To reach this state, you must integrate all the preceding disciplines: cognitive tension, predictive mastery, mental agility, unpredictability, and emotional intelligence. Every element compounds, creating a mind that sees further, calculates faster, and adapts effortlessly. Decision-making becomes instantaneous because foresight and strategy are internalized. Hesitation is eliminated because anticipation covers every plausible scenario. Social interactions, once a source of stress, become tools of influence. Subtle gestures, well-timed words, and a calibrated presence guide others toward decisions they believe are their own, while you remain unreadable and untouchable. The apex thinker thrives under scrutiny and adversity, using pressure as fuel, not distraction. Fear, envy, and manipulation lose power because the mind has evolved beyond external control, drawing strength from disciplined cognition, not circumstance. Information becomes leverage. Knowledge is converted into action with surgical precision. When faced with complexity, the apex thinker does not seek certainty, but builds paths through ambiguity, mapping multiple futures simultaneously and choosing the optimal route with clarity and confidence. Competitors and adversaries sense the intelligence, but cannot measure its full scope. Their attempts to deceive or trap fail because the apex thinker is always several steps ahead. At this level, the mind is not just reactive or strategic, it is an autonomous engine of insight, awareness, and power. Every decision reflects understanding. Every pause demonstrates patience, and every action projects authority without exposure. To achieve this, you must constantly refine mental discipline, embrace challenges that stretch capabilities, and consistently apply cognitive practices until thinking is instinctive yet calculated. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." The fear here is not cruelty, but the quiet acknowledgement of intelligence and unpredictability. The world will not wait for hesitation, nor will opportunity. Knowledge without action is a cage, and intelligence without application is wasted potential. This is your moment to step out of comfort and claim the mental power that separates the ordinary from the untouchable. The practices you have learned, cognitive edge conditioning, predictive mastery, mental agility, strategic unpredictability, and emotional control, are not theories. They are tools for dominance. Tools that forge your mind into a force that cannot be bent, manipulated, or deceived. The challenge is simple, yet brutal. Choose one step, apply it relentlessly for 7 days, and watch your perception, reaction, and influence evolve. Push the boundaries that once felt safe. Embrace the resistance that once felt uncomfortable. Force your brain to adapt, because growth requires tension, and clarity only emerges under pressure. When you act with calculation, you begin to outwit others in ways they cannot detect, anticipate their moves before they happen, and shape outcomes without visible effort. Every decision becomes strategic, every interaction an opportunity, and every obstacle a lesson that hardens the mind. But this requires more than commitment. It requires discipline. Distractions, excuses, and fear are the enemies of intelligence. Eliminate them ruthlessly. Time lost is leverage surrendered. Surround yourself with stimuli that challenge, environments that test, and situations that stretch cognition beyond familiar limits. Train your attention like a weapon. Observe every human behavior with scrutiny. Test assumptions continuously. Measure outcomes and refine methods. The process is iterative, and mastery is gradual. But every step compounds until your mind is your greatest advantage. Remember, power that cannot be exerted remains powerless, and intelligence that is not applied is invisible. Focus on action, not intent. Take what you have learned and weaponize it in your daily life, in negotiations, in social strategy, in decision-making, and in moments of stress where others hesitate. When your thoughts are sharper than manipulation, faster than fear, and clearer than confusion, no one will be able to control you again. This is the moment to become untouchable. If you found value in this system, take one final step. Like this video to seal your commitment. Share it to influence the minds around you, and subscribe to keep cultivating mastery every day. Your brain is not just a tool, it is your empire. Guard it, sharpen it, and deploy it ruthlessly. Machiavelli once said, "The one who becomes master of himself will be master of others." Your challenge begins now. Write this final statement in the comments: "My mind controls destiny."